Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences.
Good evening, everyone. Sandra Sheffrey, host of Race to the Races. We're doing our immigration show again today with Dr. Naomi Blamire, former candidate for Commissioner of Agriculture and Mayor of North Miami. And we have our community activist, Christine Sanonjul. She done ran for the things. I think she ran for Florida House District 107, a U.S. congressional seat, and there might be another race in there that I can't think of off the top of my head.
Congressional.
Two congressional U.S. congressional races in House District 107 in Florida. And so they're here about the people. We're nothing but civil servants. I mean, like public servants in this room. And so much happened in immigration this week that we needed to come on and talk a little bit about it. So I'm going to give those ladies the floor because since I'm in the space, I have a different perspective. So I want to, get them because they have to on the ground talking to the people, know what the concerns are. So I'm going to have them tell them, talk about what they're hearing, and then I could dispel any myths or talk about that, and we'll go from there. So, ladies, what we talking about today?
Well, first,
I know Christine has a timestamp, so I'm going to let her go first.
So, first, I want to actually congratulate Mayor Cava and Commissioner Bastien for making a public statement about what is going on with the Venezuelan community. It took a lot of guts because everyone has been saying, we're not saying a lot, but saying that we're supporting our migrants, we're standing by, we're ready to serve, right? But no one has outwardly said this is wrong. This is going to affect us greatly. We have to fight this. You're like directly to the Trump administration. You are hurting our community. And so I just want to say, I want to start off by saying that because we need to congratulate those that actually speak up. Whether or not they could have done it sooner is neither here nor there. Now, I also want to say that, the Venezuelan community, I don't even know. I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified, and I don't know where to even start on how to help. And that's, Sandra, I really want to talk to you about this. Like, what can we do in this moment now, knowing that hundreds and thousands of people have been given the, given the order to be deported? Like, that's what I want to talk about today. Like, what can we do? How can we step in now that the ball is rolling?
So I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily exactly what happened. So from my understanding, and I could be wrong, it's that they basically said the arguments can continue as to whether or not the administration has the ability to end TPS for Venezuelans. So that's where it was, right? For the administration wanted to do it. The people sued and said, no, you can't do that. The lower court said, you're right, you can't do that. We're going to halt this litigation. And the Supreme Court said, no, hold up. You can hear arguments as to whether or not the executive branch has the ability to stop TPS. Now, what I do remember from the first administration is that he tried to do that, particularly with Haiti TPS, and he wasn't really able to do it. But what he was able to do was to not put out a registry in order to allow those folks to re-register for TPS during that 4 years that he was there, but he wasn't able to stop the program. So the arguments that, from my understanding, and I could be wrong because I didn't get to read everything because things just keep happening. My understanding is that the court said it's okay to allow the conversation to continue as to whether or not they're able to, he has the ability to actually end and stop TPS. So, but I think the problem with them is that their program might have expired already and they're not in a position to renew. So that's what I think that's where they're all jammed up. And then plus he also attacked that other program, where they popularly known as the Biden program. So yeah, they're in a position where many of them are out of status and in positions where they can get picked up, since they are even picking up people who are doing the right thing. So
So when
I hope they're being
I read it,
sympathetic.
it said that theirs actually, well, many of theirs expires in October of 2026. So I think that I
So
guess
what I
we
think
just.
he tried to do was like he didn't want to allow them to go until October 2026. Because for example, the Haitians program end in February 2026, and he's like, nah, I'm gonna end it in August of 2025. So, but what he did with the Venezuela was like he tried to end it immediately. He was like, nope, it's done. We're done. You're not gonna have TPS. That's it. And they were like, no, you can't do that. And I think because he learned like a little bit from that, when what he did with the Haitians was like, well, I'm putting y'all on notice. This program is going to end in 6 months, even though it wasn't supposed to end until February.
Okay, Dr. Blumer, jump in. It's all you.
So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be back on another week. I'm here just to present what's going on and to kind of like work through the what I would call the I don't know. It's very heart wrenching when you hear about what's going on, and sometimes you don't know what's truth and what's not. So I think a lot of the times when I come on, I have my thoughts on some things, and so I'm looking for Sandra to kind of give me some perspective legally on what things really are. And so I think that one of the biggest things that I wanted to talk about tonight was the Laken Riley Act and the implementation of it, and what does it mean for those that are in this situation or that falls into that underneath that act. So Sandra, if you can give us a little breakdown of that.
All right. So I don't know how much detail I can go into.
Well, just give us an
all
overview,
of the
because
things.
that's kind of like one of the high top things that is actually going on right now, that people are being affected by it, aside from the issue with Venezuela right now.
Okay, so I believe that it came as a result of this young lady being, I think she was either killed or kidnapped by an immigrant, right? And so now what they want to do is, if that person is undocumented and they commit certain types of crimes, to make those crimes death penalty eligible, right? But what we have to understand is that, at least in Florida, because I don't want to talk about it, because I believe her case came out of Georgia or something like that, but don't quote me on it. But what happens, at least in Florida, is even if a person is death penalty, if the state decides to charge a person on the death penalty and seek the death penalty in the case, the judge can no longer give a person the death penalty, right? So before, like if a person was found convicted by a jury, the judge was able to sentence them to that. In Florida, that's not the case. When a person, if the state is seeking a death penalty, they do the actual trial. If they're found guilty, and then the state wants to seek the death penalty, there's a whole separate trial to show that, okay, you can make, the state has to make arguments as to why this person should be sentenced to death, and then their counsel make argument as opposed to why it is that a person shouldn't be sentenced to death, right? Florida used to be a state where they had you had to have a unanimous jury to agree on the death penalty. Because of the what's his name, Nicholas Cruz case, since though that jury wasn't able to, decided not to find him death penalty, didn't want to sentence him to the death penalty, the governor, since we have Republican supermajority in the House and the Senate in the state of Florida, the governor asked that they change the law to say that you can no longer need a majority. And I think he brought it down to, you just need 8. He did it. He went from, you imagine going from you needing 12 to going to 8-4. So as long as 8 members of the jury agree that the person should be sentenced to death, they're going to be sentenced to death. Now, listen, that's definitely going to be litigated, because that is a very big shift, extreme. That's going to be litigated, and it's possible that that they'll find that should not be the case. And also, it's something that another legislator can change, right? So if we send more, Democrats to the Florida House and Florida Senate, they can change the law back to what it was and make it go back. You need a unanimous jury, right? The crazy thing, or I don't want to use the word crazy because I don't say nothing. The reality is the person who made them change this law, they can never sentence him to death. Right? Like they did it because of Nicholas Cruz, but they can never, ever sentence him to death. He will always be a person serving life. Now, if he goes and commits some other homicide or something like that, then, in that instance, yes, but they're not going to be able to retroactively do anything to him, even though he was the reason why they went ahead and changed this, right? And so back to the Lincoln Riley, the act that you asked me about, it's never a good idea. It's never a good idea for there to be a reaction. I shouldn't say never, because there have been some movements that came out of like a reaction to something happening and it was good. But the fact that now they want to, even if you were charged with a theft offense, a burglary offense, and because you're an immigrant, they want to be able to enhance your punishment and sentence you to death because of one instance. That's not the way things should work, right? And even if you, because again, you're spotlighting a community where in every community there's criminals, right? But then you want to say, well, we don't want people who are not from the United States to come in and commit crimes. If they look at the number of immigrants that commit crime relative to the amount of people that are here, that number is very small, right? So they'll highlight like one or two cases, make it seem as though it's some sort of national emergency. Oh, look, they're over here just killing everybody, robbing the place, doing all of this. And that's just not the reality of most immigrant communities. And I will say 99.8, I don't even want to say it's 0.2%. It's like 0.000 with some number behind it in terms of immigrants that actually do something like that. So for them to make a law that's so extreme in reaction, people are gonna and then again, we already have this thing with juries. Like, I don't want to distract the conversation and start talking about juries. If a person commits a crime in a particular community and the jury doesn't look like them, they're gonna get, sentenced to death, get enhanced, have like serving 20 years on something that most people would, somebody else would get probation on, right? Because, we know that there are a lot of bias that exists in jury pools. So whatever this law wanted to solve, there were already provisions in the law that addressed all of those concerns, because there's ways to enhance somebody. We have hate crime statutes already. So like if someone did something and it was targeted or they did it for a wrong reason, there were already provisions in the law that you could enhance their punishment, right? That you didn't need to do something like this and make it seem as though the immigrants are so bad and out of control that now we got to create legislation to deal with them and punish them more harshly. Because we also have repeat offender courts. There are provisions in the law that already exist to deal with people who are career criminals and people who commit multiple crimes and who don't learn their way. There were already provisions in the law to deal with that.
And I think what is the biggest concern for me is that historically, whenever they sentence someone to the death penalty, they get it wrong more than they get it right. So I don't even
understand. They don't get it wrong more than they get it right. They get it wrong significantly enough that it should be of concern, right? So one out of every, I think the number is like 1 out of every 9 people that they sentence to death is actually innocent of the offense, right? So that's like 11% of the time you're getting it wrong. When you're talking about an ultimate punishment like death, you can't be wrong 11% of the time. Like that, those numbers are terrible, right? So that's what it is. It's not like they're always wrong. It's just that you're wrong 11% of the time. And with something so seriously, those percentages would never work. Like that's a failed experiment. You know what I mean? And most times no one would go with numbers like that. You just usually can't move forward with numbers like that.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Sandra. And the next thing that I had that was kind of really pressing on my heart when I saw that the Supreme Court, as you just clarified, they're just saying that the administration can continue with the conversations. It just made me feel that the results that the Haitian American community got out of I believe it was Boston, right? That our our assistance, if you will, came from. Is that exactly what's going to happen in our situation as well? Legal, like, where is this going?
So where it's going is that there are over 200, almost 300 lawsuits that are filed against this administration, right? So where it's going is like all of these things are going to stay in court, and the Supreme Court can say and do whatever, but they always do, like, this administration consistently does something where they have to litigate, and all this litigation they're kind of impacting, because what they're doing is like when they lose on one front, they go and do something else. It's almost like that person that keeps getting kicked in the head, but they keep getting up to fight, right? But what they're doing that's different is that they're cheating, right? Like, so it's like one thing, like, because we say if you get knocked down, you get back up, right? But you get back up and fight the fight, right? But no, so what they do, they get kicked in the teeth and they get up, start fighting, but then they cheat. And so they cheat and twist and just make stuff up. And then now folks got to go sue them again because, like, what are you doing, right? So that's the problem that we're having, is that we're dealing with an administration that already have their finger on the scale. They're willing to lie and cheat to get what they want. And they're absolutely have to be using bully tactics to make people, particularly legislators, give up the job that they were sent to do in order to allow this administration to do things that we all know is unlawful, right? I mean, the mere fact that they let this man take a jet from another country that's worth $400 million is like, are you serious? You can't do that, right? And besides that, because to me, that's a distraction, because the real travesty of what they did was in the middle of the night last night at 1:00 in the morning, they voted to cut Medicaid, Medicare, all these funding to the tune of almost $1 trillion. They did that in the middle of the night where everybody was sleeping, because they know what they're doing is wrong and they cannot face the people. And so now, everybody's got to like try to scramble and figure out what to do. So with this one, you just can't sleep, because they're fighting in a way that's unfair.
So I saw that on news as well, that it passed. And I want to urge everyone, there's a website that you can go to see exactly how it's going to affect where you live, how these cuts are going to affect where you live. And I was looking at our district in Miami, and over 130,000 people are going to lose their health care. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. And what's so devious about what they're doing is most of the things are not going to go into effect until 2027, which is after the midterm elections. So like if the House flips or whatever, they can blame the Democrats of what's going to be happening, because it's going to happen when you have at least one of the branches, of government that may be controlled by Democrats. So that's the kind of thing that's happening. But Democrats and non-NPAs, they need to continue to remind people who's doing this, what they're doing, and keep telling them about it and drill it into their head. So when 2026 comes, they do vote blue, right? Because at least we won't have to continue dealing with more damage, because they're just going to be even more reckless in the from 26 to 28. But remind them of who it is that did this. Who it is that did this.
And the reality of it is, elections have consequences. I know, even at the beginning of your show, you say it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people understand how dire that is. And it's literally like, yo, you are going to suffer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's because you didn't vote, or you chose, or for whatever reason, you chose to vote against your own community or your own livelihood, right? And I'm a firm believer that people should vote on what is best for them, what is best for their children, what is best for their children's children. And if that means, and whatever that means for you, you should follow that. But most importantly, it's those that are
sometimes, I'm gonna push back a little bit, because sometimes you can't always just vote your interest. You have to think about what's better for the community as a whole, right? Because what may be good for you is probably gonna be bad for everybody overall. And I mean, I don't know if that's
Sandra, it's very difficult for someone who, You're engaged. I'm engaged. Christine is engaged. Yeah. We're part of the engaged people. But for someone who's not engaged, and you're trying to get them engaged, it's really about themselves, where they are and how are they living and what is going to make sense for them. And I get you're talking about the big picture. I'm
No,
talking.
it's not. So let me just say what I mean. I'm gonna say that a little bit more clearly. I give it, I think we give people a pass when we say, okay, vote what's important to you, because then that's when you get those people that say, oh, I'm a single issue voter. And single issue voters are people that don't want to face the truth about why it is that they're voting that way. And we're giving them an out by that. So that's what I mean. But I think Christy is trying to get our attention. So go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, so I was just talking to my brother the other day, and he was telling me about this woman. She owns a farm, and she was on the news. She owns a farm. She has she had a lot of farm workers. She said she voted because Donald Trump, she felt, was going to be better for her as a businesswoman, for her as a conservative. But now she has no more farm workers. She has none. They are not coming to work. They are terrified of ICE showing up, and she regrets it. She's like, I didn't think about the people in my community that my vote would affect. And that is the reality. That is what we're living in. That's what happens when we only think of our interests. It can't just be us. We have to think of how things are going to affect everyone around us. I have some cousins that voted for Donald Trump. Why? Because I get the sneakers or the chain or whatever. Like, he's cool. A lot of black men were feeling this whole, oh, Donald Trump is down. You don't understand. You're being played. And now they're seeing that their family members are being, I don't know, taken away. That are literally, our country is being torn apart, all because they voted for someone that they thought was cool. We have to educate people, and we have to be loud about it. I see that the Miami-Dade Democrats have all these billboards that are coming up, and one says dictator, another one says traitor, and they're being very vocal about it. We need to be vocal about it. People need to understand that not just elections have consequences, but that they need to educate themselves that ignorance has consequences.
Okay, guys, I totally agree with you, but I don't want us to be in the position. I shouldn't say I don't want us. I personally don't want to be in the position where, because the person doesn't vote like me, I'm saying they shouldn't be voting. We have to allow people to vote, to be engaged, and to suffer the consequences when their engagement leads us as a people in the wrong direction. So then now they can rethink it, and then the next voting cycle they can vote differently. I just don't want to subscribe to the idea, if you're not thinking like me or if you're not doing it like me, then you shouldn't be a part of it. I don't like that. And I know that it's a hard pill to swallow, but individuals need, yes, to be educated, and yes, to know what the issues are, but they should be led to make the best decision for them, their households, their community, where they are mentally and where they are in their community may or may not have a long-lasting effect based on how they vote, but we should allow them to do that. As a registered Democrat, I know what it means when for your party to tell you, oh, because you don't think it just like this, then something is wrong with you. And I don't like that type of thinking. So I am here to encourage Sandra, like rolling her eyes, but I'm here to encourage.
I didn't know you could see that. I don't mean to roll my eyes, but I am absolutely struggling with something that you say.
In 2 seconds, you're gonna be bopping your head. But I want people to be engaged, to educate themselves on the issues, and I want people to vote their conscience. Now, does you vote if voting your conscience does not mean that you vote the way Naomi Lemire vote? That's okay. That's okay. That means that you're going to see how the consequences of that and where it leads you, and then you're going to have to make a decision. Is that the direction that I wanted to go? If not, then you're going to have to pivot and you're going to have to go the other way. The point is, we need everyone engaged. We don't need nobody literally standing at home and talking about, oh, my vote don't matter. It don't make it's the game is fixed. These are some of the rhetoric we hear every single day, especially for people who are just going to work, paying their bills, taking care of their kids, and it's just like, I don't have time for it. And so I think there should be a balanced approach where everyone's voice matters. And even if the person is not echoing my sentiments, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Even when it causes us to suffer as a people, that is the
Okay.
Ooh, Sandra, hot in the collar. That is
let me jump in. Let me jump in real quick because I have to go. Sorry, everyone. I am in Boston.
And maybe that's why God, hold on. And maybe that's why God allowed me to experience what I experienced in 2022. So I'm not closed-minded, or I'm not pigeonholed to say, well, if you don't like it the way I like it, if you don't like it cooked that way, then we don't even want you at the table. That is not the way, that is not the society that we want to build. And I just feel like whether you're a Republican or whether you're Democrat, it's just not the way for us. People need to feel that they can express their feelings, they can express their positions without anybody making them feel as if, oh, because you chose that way, you're less of a person or you don't belong at the table. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Let me just say this, okay? Because I've got to go. We are in a war. We are in a war. That mentality was cute. Maybe, I don't know. I would even say it was cute in 2020. Okay, maybe it was cute in 2022. We are in a war right now. And that is not the mentality that we need in this moment. We need to get our country back. And we need to fight, and we need to educate, and we need to do whatever it takes to have people understand that there is only one side that is going to fight for equality. There's one side that is going to fight for your health care. There is only one side that is going to fight for your education. There is one side that's going to fight for migrants. There is only one side, because the other side, their agenda is not for prosperity. Their agenda is not hope. Their agenda is total domination. Their agenda is rooted in white supremacy. Okay? The Republican Party of Reagan is not the Republican Party of today. It has been taken over. We are literally in a moral war. So we stand up, we fight, and listen, if you are not on the right side of this fight, then you need to stand down. I am sorry. We cannot, this kind of suffering, this is not a kind of suffering that I thought that I would experience. My grandparents didn't want me to experience this kind of suffering, and I don't want my grandkids to experience this kind of suffering. It ends with us. It stops with us. We motivate people to do the right thing. Okay, and sometimes their thoughts are not the right thing. So we got to convince them. We got to kind of shove them in the right direction. But we're not doing this kumbaya stuff, not
You
in
said
this moment.
shove them in the right direction?
Savagery. We are, listen, let me tell you something.
Christine, I don't agree with
Savagery that's
that.
going to come out in 2026.
I
Okay?
don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think that people,
you on the wrong side of
We're
this
in a
conversation tonight, Naomi. You are
Clearly,
absolutely on the. No, this is
this idea that if you don't think the way I think, then you should not be thinking.
No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that this is not a moment where all thoughts can exist, because we ain't got no time to be trying to talk to you about no stuff when we are fighting. I can't stop this fight to go and try to convince you to do what everybody should know it's right. This isn't even like one of them situations where it's kind of like borderline, like, it can go this way. No, this is some clear, crazy, illegal, unconstitutional, they're just blowing up the country stuff that's happening right now. This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is not a place where everybody come and no, this is straight up. They are blowing up the country and everything that America is about right now. They're distracting people with this P. Diddy trial when they out here doing stuff at 1 o'clock in the morning. They out here making side deals with countries, stealing stuff, and why they got you distracted with, I don't know, about some other foolishness or whatever, right? But we are like, this isn't a battle, and they got us distracted by thinking like, oh no, let everybody have a say. So nah, some of y'all just need to shut up, sit down, go take a seat, because they have spent the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years dumbing down the country, distracting people, making people talk about critical race theory, changing what woke mean and all of that kind of stuff. So they've been dumbing folks down, having them create enemies with people that are really on their side, right? Like they've literally spent the last 5, 6, 7 years,
You know what it is?
since Trump came, so we're probably almost at 10, got poor white people hating black women, hating black people, hating other poor people, making it seem as though we're their problems, when the 1% is out here about to cut their Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP benefits, things for kids to go to school and food and meals and all of this in order for them to get a tax break that they don't need. So we cannot say that everybody is able to come to the table and have part of the conversation, because some people are not equipped for this battle. Some people are not equipped for this battle, and what that means is like ain't nobody gonna hear what you gotta say, because you're not built for the battle that we're in right now.
So then here's my thing. If the idea is that there's only one party that can work for you, then you have to accept when that party is in power and that you have absolutely no voice. That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't know what that means. I might need some.
What that means is you're supposed to balance the scale. You're supposed to have people on both sides, so that
when you're dealing with reasonable people, that's really trying to do what's right, but that's not what we have here.
Hold on. You're supposed to have people on both sides, Sandra. You're not supposed to cast all of your nets on just one side and say, okay, this side is going to work for me, and then that's it. That's just not the way that I look at it. That's not the way that I think the game should be played. I think that you should have people on both sides, and no matter who gets into power, you should have a seat at the table. That's just my opinion.
Kristen, I'm gonna let you respond to that, because we're gonna wrap up.
You put all of your basket. You put everything in one basket. And then
but that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that everybody can't talk, and those can be people across the aisle, but everybody just can't talk. I think Christine, say your final thoughts. Your call to action right quick.
I've got to go, but I just want to say this. So they say you're not supposed to bring a knife to a gunfight, right? Like that's a saying. This is a gunfight, okay? This kumbayasa, leave that for the knife fight, okay? No, we need to be more strategic, and we right now we need to let people understand what's happening with our government, and we need to fight like hell to get our country back. And so that's where I stand on this. I love you all. We'll take this up again next week. I know there's so much more. You guys keep the conversation going, okay? All right, and pray for me because it's cold. It's 47 degrees.
All righty. All right. Have fun.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
No, so Naomi, understand that I'm not saying that I'm not, because I'm very open, to other thoughts and everything like that, right? But there's some time where it's like, you know what? I understand what you're saying. I respect that you think differently from me, but right now is not the time for us to have this intellectual conversation about what's going on. And that sounds like what you're trying to do. You want to have this intellectual conversation and create space for all people to talk, but this is not the time. Listen, let me tell you what this man just did. A judge just said, like, if y'all don't bring these people back, we're going to arrest all of you. They just sent 2 Cuban nationals to South Sudan. They sent a plane of people, none of them from South Sudan, right, to South Sudan because their native countries couldn't take them back for one reason or another. Because, it's very difficult to deport Cubans, and Cuba's like, you can only send us back Cubans that were got orders after 2017. They don't want nobody that came before that. So since they couldn't send them people back to Cuba, they sent them to South Sudan. How are we okay with this, right? This is the fight that we're in. So you think how am I going to have a reasonable conversation with someone that think it's okay to go send a Cuban to South Sudan? How? How are we having that conversation?
So my position with this is that all of these illegal transport of individuals, that's not necessarily where I'm at and what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when it comes to voting, when it comes to people exercising that power, they should exercise that, they should engage and exercise that power, especially in the times that we're living in, because the decisions that you make or don't make are going to have lasting effects. Now, point B is, even if you do not vote the way Naomi would vote, I want you to be a part of the process. Because what is going to happen is, it's just like local government. After the person choose a mayor or council person, and then 2 years pass and they realize, wait a minute, they ain't do nothing. All right. A third year passed. Oh, they ain't do nothing. By the fourth year, they're like, oh, no, we're voting you out. Right? That is what I'm talking about. And I know that we are in critical times, and that's not what we want to focus on. Actually getting everyone engaged and getting everyone educated, and then leading them to ultimately cast their votes. But I think that should be part of our conversation long term. And even if the person is not going to vote the way I personally vote, I want them to be a part of the process, and I want them to understand the impact that voting has on their lives. Now, we have this man who's going to be in office for a total of 4 years, right?
He shouldn't be, though. He should be impeached before that happens. He shouldn't. He's done enough impeachable offenses that there's no way that we should be dealing with him till 2028. And then JD Vance should get impeached next. I don't know what that means.
And now, look at you roll your eyes. Now I'm gonna start videotaping how you roll your eyes. I'm gonna screenshot it and send it to you. Now, after the 4 years is up, people who are engaged and understand that this is a responsibility, they have a responsibility to vote. You have to choose now how you're going to vote, because you just experienced the last 4 years, and whether or not that was good for you, that was good for your children, that was good for your auntie, your uncle, your father, your great grandfather, you need to consciously say no or yay and cast your vote. And that's what I'm talking about. And I know that's not what you want to hear, but I believe that everybody deserves to have their voices heard, even if I don't agree with them. And even if we ultimately have a situation like Trump, I think Trump was necessary, because when certain elected officials were saying, get out and vote, go out and vote, take 5 people to vote, they think it's a joke. They think it's a joke. There is not a sense of urgency. Now they realize the impact that the president can literally have on your day-to-day life, because at times it seems as if the president was far removed from you.
So this is what, because we're gonna have to wrap up, because I have another show to do at 8:00. But this is what we need to do, right? Because part of what's happening is that the president really couldn't do all of these things if Congress would hold him accountable for what he's doing, because he's basically overstepping and he's getting into the legislative branch of government, and they're allowing him to do that. So the way this changes is that every single member of the House of Representatives is up for re-election in 2026. Send about 385 of them home. Vote them all out, because this is foolishness that they're sitting here allowing this, not doing their job, doing things at 1:00 in the morning because they can't face it. Because they know they're doing nonsense. They're too scared to have town halls in their own communities. So vote all of them out, because they're up for election in 2026. Now, there are also going to be some senators that's up in 2026. Figure out who they are. I don't think Florida have any. Find out who they are and vote all of them clowns out too, because they're not doing their jobs. Because the president would not be able to do all of this stuff, do all of this illegal stuff, taking gifts from foreign countries, which I don't even know how he trusts them people and take no daggone jet from them. Like, dude, I'm like, are you seriously thinking you did a Muslim ban in 2020 in 2016 and all them people are mad at you and now you taking presents from them? Dude, please. Okay, so I don't know how you even trust that, but That's his business. My cousin called it vicier. So it's the vicier that made him do that, because clearly you're not thinking, because I wouldn't be taking no gifts from somebody that I don't trust and that I know I dogged for like however long. But okay, brother man, if that works for you, do your thing, right? But what we do, because you know, we don't talk about problems without talking about solutions. So what we're gonna do, we send about 385 of those elected officials home from the House of Representatives, and I don't remember how many numbers of senators that are up, but all of the ones that's up, send them clowns home. Send them clowns home, because they are there not doing their job. And when they act like they doing their job, they do it in the middle of the night while folks are sleeping, because they know what they're doing isn't right. And that's where we are with this. So I'm gonna let you say what your call to action is, what words you want to end on, and then we gonna take this up like next week again.
With that said, you've heard all three sides, some parallels, some different. At the end of the day, this is your life. This is your future. If you are a citizen of the United States, you have a responsibility. Don't let another election pass by where you do not cast your vote.
All right. Have a good night.
Elections have consequences.